Hi, everyone. This is Jason Ferrara with Full Circle Insights. Thanks for joining the webinar. We've got people actively joining right now, so we'll give it a few minutes to get people to join. Probably start about 3 minutes after the top of the hour. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. Give us a few more minutes. We've got people actively joining. We'll start about 3 minutes after the top of the hour. Thanks. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. We'll get started in about another minute. We've got some people still actively joining, so want to give them time to hop on and get settled. So just give us just a few more minutes. Hi, everyone. This is Jason Ferrara with Full Circle Insights. Thanks for joining our webinar today. Appreciate you spending time with us. We've got some good and interesting content today. It's time to talk about New Year's resolutions. Everybody loves/hates to have that conversation, but I think in terms of goal setting and understanding what the future looks like, it's great to begin talking about those resolutions and start working and planning those things now. So New Year's resolutions, setting and achieving ambitious marketing goals will be what we'll be talking about today. So here we have our panelists. There I am, Jason on the right. And then if you look on the left, we've got Gavin Griffiths, who is our product marketing manager. Gavin, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
There he goes. And Amy, who is our manager of account management and training. Amy, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, all.
All right. So these are the three people here, including me, who will be talking about this topic of resolutions, just to put faces with names, right? But before we get started, I wanted to introduce Full Circle Insights briefly to those of you who may not know exactly who Full Circle Insights is or what we do. So I think the best way to talk about what we do is put ourselves in that moment where we are in a meeting and we immediately get uncomfortable and frustrated because somebody says, hey, is our marketing working? Or what's the best campaign of all the campaigns that we've been running? Or sort of the dreaded, what's the ROI on our marketing? And most of the time, those are challenging questions to answer. We either don't have the answer or we hesitate, look like we don't really know. It's incredibly frustrating. And we leave those meetings and we sort of vow to never have that happen to us again, right? We'll be able to answer those questions. And so we go away and we work on trying to answer those questions, but it's really challenging. It's very difficult. It's hard work to understand that. And we tend to comb through a lot of data and we tend to hire analysts and we tend to argue a lot about that data rather than getting down to the actual answers. And so that's what Full Circle Insights does. It helps you finally solve that marketing attribution question. And we work within your existing Salesforce instance. We take the data that is there, we help you manage that data better, and we really connect the dots between your actions and the outcomes of marketing, so that the next time you go into that meeting and someone says what's working, you can confidently answer that question. So let's talk about our agenda. We've got a great agenda today in terms of understanding, talking about some resolutions, and hopefully we prompt in your mind a little bit, oh yeah, that's an interesting resolution. Mine might look like, and you fill in the blank. So maybe by the end of this, you have a piece of paper with a couple of resolutions written down on it. We'll talk about gathering data and we'll talk about understanding, or having a revenue focus, and we'll talk about setting and understanding revenue goals. Those are resolutions that either you already have or are planning to have. So we'll talk through those things. Before we get started with those specific resolutions, I'd like to remind you that there's a questions queue. And if you have a question, put it in the queue. We will get to that at the end of the webinar today. So don't be shy about typing in questions. We're happy to field those during or even after the webinar. One of the things we like to do before we get started with all the content is understand a little bit more about you as an audience. So we have a couple of poll questions here. I will start a poll within GoToWebinar, and we'll ask you, what is your role? Are you marketing operations? Are you a CMO? Are you part of the demand gen team? Are you a Salesforce admin? Are you on the IT team? Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you sit in the organization. That will help Amy and Gavin and even me as we talk through some of these resolutions and the ways around those things. So we've got responses coming in. That's great. Thank you very much for doing that. Looks good so far. People are participating. I'd love to see it. Just give one more couple seconds here before we are. I want to write down some notes so I don't forget. Okay, I think we are where we're going to be. I'll go ahead and close out that poll. So the results of the poll. Most of you are on the demand generation team. Many of you are marketing operations, and none of you are the CMO or Salesforce admin or IT. Great to know. The marketing ops and demand generation teams are exactly the audience for this kind of conversation, and how you build some resolutions to take back to your team is important as well. All right, so now let's go to the second poll. I'll just go right back here in GoToWebinar, and we'll launch this. Have you planned your 2024 revenue goals? So you either have nothing planned or some of that planning is done. You're completely done planning. We never have revenue goals, so obviously we don't have them. So one of those is probably somewhere where you are as a team, as a company. Where are you currently in terms of heading into 2024? And again, some answers are coming in. It's great to see. Thanks for doing that. And we're getting close. I think all of you are optimistic, perhaps. All right, I think we are where we're going to be, so I'll go ahead and close that poll and share those results. And why I say you're optimistic is nobody has nothing planned. So either you don't want to say that you have nothing planned, or all of you are really in good shape with some planning done. I was talking with our team today. You know, my day job as the CEO at Full Circle Insights, talking about planning and December planning and end of the year planning and beginning of 2024 planning, and realizing that we too have some planning done. So there are some things that we need to speed up, right? And this is a great way to do it, to think about what those resolutions are, what those goals are. Amy or Gavin, any comment about this particular poll? Do you think that some planning done is right on track, behind, ahead? What are your thoughts here? Anything in particular?
Based on conversations that I've had with customers in the last few weeks, I would say this is about right on target.
Yeah.
Some planning done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say the same. I was working with several customers right now. Everyone's just kind of either in progress or starting to get everything finalized for end of year.
Yep.
Yeah. And at what point do people feel like they're done with planning? Does that happen, you know, early January? Is that end of Q1 for, if you think of it as calendar year, or when do people feel like they're kind of, okay, I'm done planning and I'm all about execution only right now?
Well, I think ideally it would be before, if whatever your fiscal year is starting. So if it's a calendar year, it'd be January. However, you know, even when you have a really good plan, there's always tweaks and changes to that plan. And so come January, you're already sitting in Q1. So I would say that even though they would like to have most of the plan finalized by 2023, probably the first month of the calendar year is when it mostly gets finalized, with complete knowledge that things will be tweaked and changed as metrics are watched.
Yeah, I think that's a big challenge, especially on like sales teams too. You know, I talk to a lot of sales teams and a lot of sales managers just about, when does everybody on your team have their quota? When do they have their plan? And one of the challenges with planning in January is your sales team is looking to you to give them that information. And a lot of times if it's not ready, then you've got people who are, you know, should be off running hard and are kind of waiting in the wings. So I think some planning is good to know, and how do we speed up planning, and maybe some of the things we talk about today will help do that. All right, so we're back looking at our poll that we answered there. Some planning done. So let's jump into the resolutions. You know, we tried to seed this conversation with 3 specific resolutions. So the first one, I will gather accurate funnel metrics. That is our first resolution. And it might seem simple, but it is oftentimes challenging. I mean, creating an accurate funnel is a challenge for many people. I know it has been in my past roles. So having a resolution to make sure that you have something that is buttoned up, make sure that you have something that is agreed upon, is really important. And gathering those accurate funnel metrics is really about selecting the right metrics. And here I've got a picture of conversion rates and a picture of velocity rates, 2 great examples, and we'll talk about those in just a few slides here. But I think that's the first resolution, right? Let's gather accurate funnel metrics. Second of all is, I will understand our revenue goals. Again, it seems very simple, but then go have this conversation, right? And this conversation is much more complex than that. I have 2 pictures here of something that maybe all of you are used to seeing inside Salesforce, a little speedometer of where you are to your goals. I think it's important to understand your revenue goals and then measure those revenue goals, and measure them in a way that's easy for people to understand and compelling for people once you do. So understand revenue goals is number 2. And number 3, I'm going to build plans to hit those revenue goals. Again, seems very clear, yes, that's what we're doing as part of demand gen and marketing operations. I'm going to build plans to do that. But I do know that when, most of my career has been spent as a chief marketing officer in a technology company, in different technology companies, we get to work and you start running downhill very fast, creating campaigns and doing things, and oftentimes planning to hit those revenue goals happens after you've run campaigns, and then you're trying to figure out how to understand the data after the campaigns have been run, and it's a little flipped there. So that's our third resolution. So then the conversation turns to, how do we achieve these? How do we achieve these resolutions? And so, Gavin, I'd like you to start talking through that a little bit about, let's start with aligning funnel stages. How are you going to use the alignment of funnel stages to start hitting some of those resolutions?
Sorry, the mute button was stuck.
That is all right.
No worries. Yeah, so kind of getting into leveraging these resolutions and aligning your funnel stages. So kind of going back to the beginning around identifying your MQL conversion rates and your revenue goals and your average deal sizes, you can effectively kind of work backwards based off historical data that you've been collecting over the last year. So if you know that your revenue goal for Q1 is $10 million and your average deal size is around 55,000, this allows you to basically just divide the deal size by that revenue goal to break down exactly the number of deals you're going to need to hit or to generate in order to hit that revenue goal. And then aligning that with the marketing data and going back to your qualified lead to close one deal conversion rate, you can take that and that'll give you the percentage basically of what percentage of your qualified leads are turning into close one deals, and you can effectively divide that number of new deals that you need by that conversion rate, and that'll tell you exactly how many MQLs you will need to bring in during that period of time. And then tying that back into the velocity rate is where you're really tracking how long it's taking on average to get from beginning of pipeline to end of pipeline. And so if you know that, you know exactly how many qualified leads you need to generate, and then put that up against, what that time frame is, your sales cycle might be 30, 60, 90 days. So in order to hit those revenue targets, you can scale that back and identify exactly, okay, we know this is how long it takes us to get through pipeline, we know what our conversion rates are, so we can break this down and focus in on what we need to have in pipeline in order to make sure that we're on track to hit those revenue goals.
Great, thanks, Gavin. And then I do want to talk about the definition of the funnel stages, specifically what an MQL is, honestly, even what a win is. So, Amy, when you are working with our clients, how often are you talking about those definitions of those stages and trying to make sure that people are aligned on, we know what an MQL means?
All the time. We talk about it all the time. So for marketing teams, MQL is that qualified leads. It meets whatever their business criteria is, meaning this lead, this prospect is ready to hand to sales. We have qualified it, it's good to go, right? And from there, their stages tend to mimic or be closely resemble kind of what the sales process is. So once it's become qualified, the next stage may be something we might call SAL, which is a sales accepted lead. So it moves to the sales is actively working it. And from there, it may go to either most likely an opportunity creation, and then it goes to opportunity stages. The reason they do this is so they can accurately track, when we qualify a lead, is it meeting the SLAs when we pass it to sales and they're working it? B, how long does it take from when it MQLs to actually becoming a opportunity or become pipeline? From there, when it becomes an MQL, what is our average time frame, right, before we see a close? So whether that's a win or a loss. So we talk about it all the time as it, relates to their own funnel, but also when it comes to their planning.
Yeah, and the planning is interesting too, because I'm thinking that this type of analysis just isn't, well, Is it a set it and forget it thing, or is it not? I feel like if I rip
Uh,
this out, December, and I know what that number is going to be, is it always like that, or do I need to go redo this analysis periodically?
Always, if for me, I would always recommend watch your metrics. Let's take, for example, we just had the conversation of when does planning usually end? Well, normally I said planning probably doesn't end until at least in January, because you don't even have the end of your December numbers yet. Knowing that your time frame may be 30, 60, 90 days, that means you need to watch your first quarter deals, your first quarter metrics, because you may not be as far along as you would like for the year, and would need to then adjust your second, third, and fourth quarter metrics. So it's something you want to watch and adjust for.
Yeah. And Gavin, I'm assuming that velocity rates fluctuate throughout a year too, right? So it's kind of a multivariate analysis that we're doing here. Talk a little bit about velocity rates.
Yeah, definitely. So with velocity rates, it's what we're looking at here is kind of a global average over a period of time from when you pulled your historical data. But you're going to have instances where sometimes you could have seasonality where you're running specific types of marketing campaigns and you have a huge influx of qualified leads that come into your funnel, and that may slow down your velocity rates where you might not have enough salespeople on hand to be able to chomp through all those leads in a timely manner, and it affects that conversion rate. Or it just might be seasonal. You may have a specific industry you work in where that time to pipeline drags on a little bit longer because they're not the end of their fiscal year where they can reallocate budget. And so monitoring that and keeping track of those trends is really going to be super helpful, because it's going to allow you to have basically a lot of foresight on where you need to place things accurately and be the most effective with your marketing drive to bring in new business.
Yeah. I was thinking about velocity rates too, that this shared understanding and definition of funnel stages impacts velocity rates greatly. So if you have alignment on how your funnel stages are defined, you may believe the velocity rates more than if there's misalignment, because you get into argument with somebody about, well, the second stage of our funnel, we believe it's this, and someone else believes it's this, and so now your velocity rates aren't right because you're not really measuring the same thing. I would imagine that's another argument for, hey, get everybody aligned on what your stages of your funnel are. Amy, you run into that, like just the definitions, the raw definitions. Do you end up helping people with those? How does that get defined?
So, the raw definitions of the stages should closely align with your business processes. And what I mean by that is not only on your marketing side, but also on your sales side. Those two things, marketing and sales, should be aligned so they know, both the marketing teams and the sales teams or leadership know what they mean, understand what the stage attainment is. For instance, an opportunity is created, an opportunity moved to a certain stage, or it was won or lost, and what the metrics are around those. So if marketing provides that qualified leads, does sales know what the SLA or how long it should, how many days should pass before that lead is worked, right? So there should be alignment in each stage between all. When I say the business processes, I mean not just marketing, but sales as well, because that you want to unify those two teams. In the end, they're, marketing doing what it needs to do, provides quality prospects for sales, sales works it, and the goal is to add more revenue to the bottom line.
Great, thanks so much. Important to talk about aligning funnel stages and understanding how to do what I would always call a bottoms up analysis of what do I need for revenue, and how does that look through my funnel. So that's a really important item to have as one of the ways to achieve your resolutions for the year. All right, so the second piece, let's talk about, I thought I skipped a slide, there we go. Let's talk about top performing campaigns. And this, Gavin says, first touch attribution model. We want to talk a little bit about attribution modeling and understanding your top performing campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the first touch attribution model, so now that we have an idea of what we need to drive in pipeline in order to hit those revenue goals, we need to kind of focus more on what marketing channels are performing the best at bringing that new business in here. And so a first touch attribution model is really going to be focused on the campaigns that are bringing in net new leads into the org, or brand new people or brand new organizations for your sales team to work. And so this first touch attribution model is focusing in and looking at across like all of the deals that become close won over the past, which campaigns were the most effective at essentially bringing in brand new people into the top of the funnel. And so this will be kind of that first stage of looking across your marketing planning for the year and identifying, okay, hey, we need to hit this for our MQL volume. What campaigns were performing the best at doing that? And so this is where you can start identifying and say, going back to those trends and saying, okay, we know we ran these campaigns at this time of year and these performed really well, but this will allow you to break down and effectively allocate budget more and more effectively to put marketing spend where it's going to do the most good. And so that's where this attribution model looks at that for that marketing strategy, is it really focuses in on that top of funnel and bringing in brand new people, new deals.
Mm-hmm. I just had a conversation with our board yesterday about filling the top of the funnel and planning for that. So this is very top of mind. It sounds coincidental that I had that conversation, but I really did have that conversation. Amy, when we're having those conversations about what fills the top of the funnel, is it always first touch attribution? Is this the best thing to use? Are there other reasons to use a first touch attribution model? Just give us a little color around that in your conversations with clients.
I see first touch used a lot. I see first touch probably used in the majority of the customers that I speak to. It does, a funnel gets smaller at the bottom for reasons why we call it a funnel. So we do have to stuff the top of it in order to get more coming out of the bottom. So a first touch model does show you that. What I also see is that as they progress in their planning, as they, frankly get better with their planning, they'll take the first touch and continue on with that, but also look at maybe a last touch, or they'll add some elements so they can see not only what is that thing that's bringing them to our company, but what is that path, especially right before opportunity creation. So that would be a last touch. And that's just one example. But I do see the model getting, I wouldn't say complicated, but more diverse than just first touch as they move along through their plan.
Yeah, and that's great jumping off point, Amy, for this next slide, right? Like we talk about top performing campaigns, and then we want to talk about high impact campaigns, and those aren't always the same thing, right? So there are other ways to figure that out. Gavin, you want to talk through these models, and then yeah, Amy, it would be great to carry on your conversation about, well, what's the conversation that a client has when they say, I want to graduate from one model to the next. So maybe Gavin, go through the explanation a little bit for us and give us a little insight there.
Yeah, definitely. So like anything when you're running attribution, each model tells a really important part of the story, but not the entire picture. And so getting the view into these different kind of attribution models that are going to give you different insights around the effectiveness of your marketing, so you can make the most informed decisions possible. Looking at like these high impact campaigns. So as we with the first touch campaign, that's a great view for top of funnel, and same thing. And then looking at like last touch or multi-touch attribution views, this is where it gets even more into the weeds of identifying, okay, hey, we evaluated first touch, we know what's bringing in new leads, but not every new lead that comes into your funnel is going to be marketing qualified. And so we need to look at kind of the next stage of that customer journey, and things like last touch, like what was that tipping point that got them into the funnel? Like what was that touch point that got them to move from pre-opportunity into having that discussion with sales and getting a demo and contract negotiation all the way through close one. And so with these different ones, this allows you to look at different areas of that customer journey and focus in on, okay, we need to break up our marketing strategy into different tier levels of not just bringing in net new qualified leads, but we also need to continue to stay engaged with these people and continue to push them through the funnel. And so looking at things like last touch, where that tipping point is that gets them into there, this is where you can kind of break that down into your strategy and see what that looks like across the customer journey. So once someone comes into the funnel, we want to see, okay, what do we need to continue to push out? Like what marketing campaigns were getting people past that qualified lead threshold and getting them into deal. And so that's where things like last touch or looking at multi-touch attribution is going to provide that view for you and give you that use case of saying, okay, this is our next stage of the customer journey. This is what we need to focus on. That was the most effective at carrying people on through to bringing in those new deals.
Yep. So Amy, we mentioned first touch, and how are people deciding, hey, I need more attribution models than I started with, or I need a better understanding of my campaigns and a little bit more in depth with my data? How are people making that transition from one model to multiple models, for example?
Okay, so again, this is going to be based on their business processes. However, with that being said, it really starts out like this. I would love to tell you that every time you touch a customer with a campaign, it automatically goes to an opportunity, but that's just not life. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
So we know just in our own personal lives and experiences, especially on larger items, that there's multiple touches, there's multiple things that have to happen to get them into the actual buying cycle, right? So the first touch shows you that first touch, but it doesn't show you all these other touches that they may have had prior to the opportunity being opened. That's where the multi-touch comes in. That's usually where it, how that happens. So generally the first touch is what we'll see in the multi-touch. We'll see that last touch right before the opportunity is created. And a popular one that Gavin just mentioned is the tipping point. What is the campaign that actually caused this prospect to become qualified? What pushed them over the edge and made them a qualified marketing lead that got passed off to sales? So those three things combined is usually, I'm not saying it's all the time, there's a multitude of different attributions out there, but I do see those three combined a lot.
Yeah, that's important, and those are I think before when I was talking about having that uncomfortable conversation around what's working and what isn't. These are ways to understand what's working and what isn't, right? So when you have your revenue goal, you can now look at, okay, well, what are the campaigns that are bringing in revenue? What are the campaigns that are filling the top of my funnel is one question. That is an important question to ask. And then you've got what are campaigns that are bringing in revenue? And that could be a combination of last touch or multi-touch or something like that. You agree with that, Gavin? What's any thoughts around that comment?
Yeah, no, I mean, because the different attribution models are going to give you different views and perspective along that customer journey, and segmenting out and focusing on that is going to basically give you the full picture of that process and give you a lot of really well-informed, give you the ability to make really well-informed decisions through accurate data, because each one of these views alone is great, but it's not the entire picture.
Exactly.
Great. And then most engaged, right? We want to talk about, not only do we want to talk about, we know what's happening and what looks good in different ways with different models, but we want to really hone in on this most engaged campaigns and what we can do with those campaigns. So Gavin, why don't you talk us through this a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So this really ties a lot into kind of like an account-based marketing strategy. And so when someone enters the funnel, they may not be the decision maker, but being able to identify when people across an account are engaged with your campaigns can be incredible insight for sales, because when we know if we have these identifiers of what's not just bringing new people in the pipeline, that tipping point, but what's keeping these potential customers engaged across the account, so we're staying top of mind and we're continuing to engage with them to get them all the way through pipeline. And so where these most engaged campaigns really come into play is it gives you an even broader view down across the entire pipeline, and allows you to really hone in and see, okay, hey, these are our campaigns that are bringing new people. These are the campaigns that are getting the tipping point, bringing them in. But if you look across that customer journey, you can identify effectively in here, which campaigns are kind of starting that journey, and then is this getting handed off to a different person at that company to carry this forward, or what's generating enough awareness to continue to keep us in top of mind and stay engaged with these people so we can continue to get them through pipeline. And so that's where this really comes in handy across there, is looking across that entire account-based marketing view and breaking it down into kind of that life cycle, that customer journey, to be able to break down, see where you're having the most impact there, and what's doing the most good towards keeping things in pipeline.
Yeah, that account-based marketing concept and applying attribution to account-based marketing is so important, and we want to know, of these target accounts that we're looking at, who's engaging and how are those accounts engaging, right? So that attribution maybe becomes even more important to understand how the time and the energy and the resources I'm using for those particular accounts. Amy, when you're working with our clients, are they graduating to that account-based marketing view, or are they already doing that and know that they need attribution? Like, how are you working with clients on that account-based marketing concept?
Yeah, a lot of my my customers, when I speak to them, are utilizing the account-based. They want to see, because things don't happen in a vacuum. There's multiple people usually making decisions. They want to see the campaigns that are most influential, right? When these decisions are being made, when the opportunity is being created, when that opportunity is winning. So I'm seeing it pretty much across the board, that they're using an account-based type of model.
It occurs to me that one of our resolutions for the year could and should possibly be start an account-based marketing program, right? And I think this could be a crawl, walk, run strategy, but it's probably bubbling around your organizations anyway. So that's a fourth one that we're going to come up with here on the fly, about the ability to create that type of program and then execute the attribution against that type of program. All right, and then we want to talk about summarizing campaign attribution.
Yeah,
you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so this is where it kind of ties back to what I was mentioning earlier about getting that complete view across all of your campaign attribution. So as I mentioned earlier, not one of these is going to tell the entire, it's going to give you the entire picture for your planning, but ultimately what the goal of this exercise and using this for your setting your resolutions for the next year and your revenue goals is ultimately to determine, okay, beyond knowing what we need to drive for new pipeline, what are our best tools that are gonna get this job done for us? Which campaigns do we need to focus on? Where do we need to put our ad spend revenue? And then identifying things that maybe need to be cut or just done away with, or need to be optimized for better performance. And so these views in here are breaking this down across that entire that life cycle journey for your customers and where things fall into your funnel is going to give you that ability to say, okay, we know exactly what our revenue goal is, what we need to drive our pipeline. Now we know exactly what campaign strategies have been working really well for us and where we need to put our ad dollars.
Yeah. And one of the things that's important to me in this visual is the notion that I have multiple models for my attribution strategy. And so I can look at my activities, I can understand my execution a little bit differently because I can look at different models and see how they impact the market and the customer journey. Amy, talk a little bit about that with the clients that you talk to and the companies that you talk to. Running multiple models is giving them more information, more insight. How is that working in practice?
Yeah, so running multiple models does provide more insight. So at the beginning of this, we were talking about how do we get to the numbers? We have this revenue goal, right? We need to know how many MQLs we need, which means we need to shove the top of the funnel with this much. That's great, but how are you going to get to that number? Running these different models allows for you to look at, based on whatever is in what you need. But in this scenario, a first touch, a last touch, a multi-touch, which campaigns are performing the best for us? Now we have an actual plan. We have the names of the campaigns, what we're running, the revenue that was tied to them, and we can use those campaigns as a basis of an actual plan that we can follow and put metrics to. This allows you to, from the start of the fiscal year to the end, to not only watch those metrics to make sure you're performing as you should based on your goals, but also make adjustments, right? So if one of these that has been your top 5 in one of the models for a while, all of a sudden is not producing as much as it should, you can now watch it and tweak your plan, maybe see what's going on, and stay on track. So that is now with the funnel, you know exactly what you have, and with attribution, you know how you're going to get there.
Yeah. Great. Well said. Thank you. And then we do want to talk about monitoring the pipeline. I mean, that, the reality is attribution models are one thing because I know what's performing, but what is going on inside the pipeline could be equally as important. So Gavin, walk us through these 2 examples here.
Yeah, definitely. So I continue to, like, on top of the planning, after you've identified what are your top performing campaigns and knows what your funnel volume and conversion metrics need to be, this is where you kind of are monitoring this throughout the year. So this information is never set in stone. There's always going to continually be changes, and so this is where you can continue to monitor and make adjustments for things and basically proactively take action on things. Whether that be based off historical data, where if you're looking over the last couple of years and you can see trends and say, hey, we noticed that every year on this time of year, this is when we see a dip in conversion rate, or this is when we see a spike in our velocity, and you can account and plan around that. So that way you can make accommodations for things based off historical data, or identify things as they're going through and take action on them immediately to prevent any kind of future losses.
And Amy, when we're thinking about optimizing and looking and seeing what's happening through the funnel, how is that? Is that we've got marketing ops and we've got demand gen experts on our call today. So how are the marketing ops teams and the demand gen teams really using using the attribution models? How are they using this type of look at the funnel in practice?
Well, number one, if you're looking at something like this, and if we look at the examples and you see peaks and valleys, the question is why are you seeing those peaks and valleys? So what happened within that month cohort that produced some great results or decreased some usually great results? I would also, if you're able, I would have this conversation with the sales team. With your sales leadership. This should be a combined effort. You may find that you had a really great, maybe a new campaign. It produced a lot of qualified prospects. And like Gavin said before, it overwhelmed the sales team. So the conversions and the velocities weren't what they normally would.
Mm-hmm.
You may find after talking to sales leadership that some are just not being worked as they should. And I think having those conversations just strengthens, right, that relationship between marketing and sales. So I do think that there is things that marketing themselves know. We did this. We can see the spike. We can see it's working well. And there's sometimes I think that those conversations need to happen across teams.
Yeah, it brings to mind a 5th resolution. Gosh, and I'm brainstorming all these resolutions now while we're on this call, but the 5th resolution is I will have a healthy relationship with my counterpart on the go-to-market team. So and me as a marketer is I'll have a healthy relationship with the sales team, right? The sales team, I'll have a healthy relationship with the marketing team, where healthy means understand the peaks and valleys and understand how we both contribute to that and understand the data and understand what's next and what we can really work on together to improve those numbers. So another unintended resolution coming out of this conversation. So thanks so much. All right, that brings us to the end of the conversation about our specific resolutions, right? Resolutions about gathering the right data. resolutions about setting revenue-focused marketing goals, resolutions about hitting those marketing goals. But, as we come up with resolutions about working with sales and resolutions about driving the business forward in a different way than we have in the past. It's like the perfect conversation to have with marketing operations and demand gen experts when we're part of the way done with our planning. So that, hopefully what you heard today, you're writing down a couple of resolutions of your own, or you're writing down a couple of ideas around your use of attribution models and how those attribution models can help you understand what's happening today, what you can do about your plan in the future. Even things you did this past year can be really informative to what you want to be doing next year. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I really do appreciate the time that you spent with us. Gavin and Amy, thank you so much for your expertise, your comments, your willingness to field my off-the-cuff questions that you didn't know were coming and do those so well. So thanks very much to both of you for participating.
Yeah.
And I should say, as we talk about planning for next year, our next webinar in our monthly webinar series is coming up in January, specifically January 24th. You can register for that at fullcircleinsights.com. And this is all about why your Salesforce attribution is abysmal. I can't believe we're using the word abysmal, but I've been there where my attribution is abysmal and it feels that way. But we're not just going to wallow in the abysmal nature of our data. We're going to talk about how to fix it. So why our attribution is abysmal and how to fix it. That's coming up January 24th. Feel free to register at fullcircleinsights.com. Thanks for participating, everybody. Really appreciate the time spent with us. Again, Amy and Gavin, thanks very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.